Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to try to talk about some mechanics in terms of combat, progression in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I'm going to try my best not to spoil it for you guys. So what I'll do is I'm going to just speak, and I'm not going to put any gameplay because if you don't want spoilers, the gameplay that I have now is definitely gonna spoil it for you. Maybe I can put like some of the just walking gameplay footage from the beginning in this video when I'm in post production so that you can have a visual. But other than that, I just feel like the game has gotten to the point where anything will spoil it. So first of all, let's talk about progression. Progression is a little slow paced, and I think that's okay. I think they're trying to develop this character, and perhaps we'll probably see some more action, maybe not even in this game. I mean, I've watched a lot of the gameplay stuff. I've watched the game. I've watched the end scenes and whatever. I don't care about spoilers. I don't really. And I'm still playing the game. It doesn't bother me at all. It does not even faze me one bit, which is weird. But at the same time, with the progression comes, just a few things like how he levels up his skill tree. And then the fact that if you die, you lose all the XP that you've gained to your last, I think, skill point or something, which is terrible because if you lose all that XP gain, it means that your progression is probably going to be a little slower in terms of how fast you actually progress and, enjoy the mechanics that are part of the game. I think that is a terrible mechanic. They need to remove that crap. But hey, maybe they wanted to make the progression longer and that was their, idea, but bad idea, Respawn. That's the only bad thing that I would say about the game so far. But it's not really a big issue, honestly. If you look at it, you can swap difficulty and you could just farm the NPCs and get the XP that you need to, gain the skill points or whatever. That's a thing. You can go back, save, respawn all the NPCs, farm them if you want to get the XP points. It's a thing you can do. But then, you also have to look at things like, the exploration mechanics. There is a lot of exploration in this game. And I just want to outright say that this game is like Tomb Raider. It is literally Tomb Raider with a little Uncharted in there because there's some climbing. Uncharted 4 is a lot of climbing. My goodness. If there's any game that wins it in terms of climbing, Uncharted 4 did that. It just hands down won that game. The reason I won't play Uncharted 4 a second time is just because there was just so much climbing. Oh my gosh. Now, it was a beautiful game. It was definitely a beautiful game. I cannot complain. But that climbing, though, yeah, you climbed a lot. You climbed a lot. But that was a good story to follow it. But in this game so far, I feel like progression is slower, and I feel like, those mechanics that have been successful in other games in terms of climbing, exploration, Tomb Raider style puzzles, Uncharted style puzzles, you see some level of that. So far, I'm on basic levels, type stuff. I'm 6 hours in, and, I haven't really seen anything revolutionary. I mean, Uncharted 4 and Tomb Raider are on a whole different level in terms of, level design. When you walk into a tomb or when you walk into an area, like all what you see, the aesthetics, but then you also have to look at their world. Their world is like ancient human civilizations versus like Star Wars, ancient alien civilizations. That Star Wars does have some kind of a bland presentation to it. It's just always been that way. Things are kind of clean, plain, and that's just how the spirit of that game is. So I just feel like they cannot be too flamboyant as well in terms of their design. That's one thing about doing and making, something with an IP that already has like its own lore and everything set for you. So it seems like they're working within the parameters that they have. And in that case, if we're going to judge it from a Star Wars perspective, I would say that this is actually pretty good. Now, that's, in my opinion, what progression so far feels like. And then another thing, too, is, story, the driving nature of the story. I don't know what words to use to classify it, but I will give you some examples from other games. So something that Naughty Dog does that makes their story-driven games better, and a lot of other people did not pick up on it except for Cory. Cory Barlog picked up on that. And I think he wanted that mechanic in his game. It was so difficult for them to put together, but they eventually did it. And I'll share that mechanic with you. It's the companion mechanic. You see, if you go play every Uncharted game, in parts of the mission, you will have a companion that accompanies you in the mission. Now, they're not always going to be with you. In the progression of the mission, they actually add an artificial barrier that cuts you off from that companion. And then it's like maybe, you lift them up to somewhere. And when it's time for them to lift you up, the structure breaks. And you're like, all right, I'll find another way up there. And then they dispatch from you. Uncharted 4 does that absolutely well. And then if you go back again, you look at The Last of Us, where, you know, Ellie and what's his name, Joe, is it Joe, the protagonist? They're pretty much almost always together. There are very few times where they actually do separate. And I think that is the beautiful nature of the story-driven aspect of these games. I bet you Naughty Dog will be like, don't share our secret. That's what it is. Because I play a lot of them. And whenever you don't have the companion mechanics, you have to have a strong story in order for you to be able to sell that this person is just individually by themselves going through all of this. And I think Tomb Raider, the 2013 Tomb Raider, did that very, very well. And then when they tried to add a companion in the Rise of the Tomb Raider and the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, they didn't make that companion in a way where you could sell it. Like, they tried to do it a little bit in Shadow of the Tomb Raider when, Noah accompanies you a little bit, but I just think his character was just didn't have enough chemistry with Lara Croft. And so it was good for them to remove him from time to time. Or maybe for you, his character had chemistry and they probably needed to add him more. Perhaps that would have been it. And what I think about Jedi Fallen Order is you have almost no companion except your little droid. And your droid doesn't even really make it very fun in a sense. I feel like that droid was an opportunity to be able to add quips, add funny moments, and kind of make it very playful. That would have been the way that they could have exploited that companion mechanism. Because yes, you do have a companion, but that companion is not a strong character. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity in this game so far. That was definitely it. Because if you think about it, Uncharted 4, when you're rolling with a companion, especially the way they did it, and the other Uncharted games too, not just Uncharted 4, but I'm using that as a, closer game in terms of this generation. But if you're rolling with maybe, Sam, his brother, or maybe, some of the other characters, they're making jokes of one another, they're talking, they're having a conversation, the writing is solid, but you can't, Neil Druckmann's a boss too at writing. And then if you even look at, God of War, when Kratos and Atreus are just interacting with everything, that makes the game absolutely phenomenal, and then even they added a third companion in God of War, they added the talking head, that's what I think drives a story game. And I think that would have driven this game much better in terms of that. Now, I am only 6 hours in. So for the past 6 hours, I just have not seen these things. And that's why I'm judging from there. But I feel like 6 hours is actually a good feel for what you're going to get in terms of the game. So you're probably going to have to play it by itself and all that stuff. Now, this is the first Star Wars that Respawn has done. That's fine. I'm willing to cut them a lot of slack in terms of this because they are doing what gamers actually do want. And they're doing it under the banner of a company that doesn't really seem to, for the past, has just not seemed to care what gamers actually want. So I feel like Respawn can go ahead, and hopefully this game is successful for them. They can go ahead and actually make another game in this same spirit, but then pick up on a lot of the Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica type progression mechanics that makes their games successful. I mean, their games are successful. They are literally platform exclusives. Like, they are console exclusive. They're not just straight up PlayStation exclusives, and they do so well. Why do you think they do so well? They do well because they make sure that all these elements are in place. I mean, sure, they don't really have, like, Uncharted doesn't have the best shooting mechanics. The Last of Us didn't have the best shooting mechanics, but what was it that made it so enjoyable? Had stealth mechanics, had the survival mechanics. That was good. That was a good thing that was added to the game that made it really, deep. And then God of War had good combat mechanics, but, there was also a very strong story. But I think overall, the way the progression drives in the game, the characters that you meet have to be interesting. They have to be dynamic. And I feel right now, what Star Wars, is struggling from in terms of this particular game is making dynamic characters. I think it's making interesting characters that are interesting enough for you to want to say, this character is actually funny. I miss this character. I can tell you for sure that in God of War, I miss the dwarves. They were so funny. They literally made the game, a lot of fun, and every character was just so deep, so well done, but, like I said, this is the beginning. This is like, the toddler version, or the baby. You know, I don't know what Respawn has done in the past. I know they've done Titanfall, you know, but bringing this IP is a very big step for them, and I think they're going in the right direction. If EA continues to hold this license, then Respawn needs to continue to do their games, and Respawn needs to continue to just tap those ideas from everywhere that they possibly can to make these experiences much more robust and bring Star Wars to what it needs to be. You cannot cheapen this IP. When EA tried to do the first Battlefront of this generation, where all they did was a multiplayer stunt, and then they tried to do Battlefront 2 where they tried to make the game a casino machine, they tried to cheapen the IP. You cannot do that. This IP is a revolutionary IP in our human culture. This game is a game of culture, and so I think they've done such a good job so far that I can credit them and say, okay, even though you may not have done everything that, you know, the big dogs are doing, see what I did there, Naughty Dog, big dog? You're still doing something that is getting to the heart of what this IP can look like. And for those who play multiplayer, you know, you're probably not with me. You're probably wishing they'll do a multiplayer aspect of the game. Honestly, I wish that in some aspects too, because if you think about Star Wars, if I were to develop a Star Wars game, no one's going to give me a Star Wars game to develop. But if I were to develop a Star Wars game, I would do it like The Division. Hands down. Co-op, multiplayer. I will not put PvP. Or if I put PvP, it'll be limited. It will just be like the regular Battlefront 2 PvP where everything is all set up for you. You know what each character is. You can play as whatever character if you earn that character. But co-op, where everybody is going into these missions and, you know, you're picking your class. You pick your class, and that class actually levels up all kinds of fun abilities, and you take on bad guys with intricate level design, doing objectives, getting gear, upgrading gear, getting skills, getting more powers. If you choose the Jedi class, you have access to, you know, Jedi class powers. If you pick Stormtrooper or whatever, all kinds of different classes that you can pick. Do you know it will literally be the RPG of the generation. Like, it'll be crazy if they did that. And I know they've done something like that in the past. You know, different companies have touched on the Star Wars thing, but that's how I would do it. So anyways, that's what I have for you for, you know, about 6 hours of playing it, the game. I'm enjoying it. Nonetheless, it's nice to have something of that nature. There are really fun mechanics. And I think this game was made with, you know, a lot of love for what gamers actually want. You know, no loot boxes so far. No microtransactions so far. We don't know anything. I don't know anything about DLC. There might be DLC, but I know Respawn usually does some really cool stuff like, hey, here's DLC for free. They did that for Titanfall. And I hope that they continue to make games in this spirit and not go get on a greedy mandate, because their publisher has shown that they have greed in their agenda. So hopefully we'll be keeping an eye on EA. EA has not, they've not done enough to clean up their past acts. And I've said this before, they have 10 years in my book, if I'm still here, to be able to say, okay, we have definitely revolutionized our way of looking at making video games. Until I see 10 years of consistent practice, then I say, okay, you can trust EA. But I don't know if we're going to see 10 years, because you're going to have FIFA every year, and that continues to prolong it. I'll get out of your hair. Thank you very much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys so much. You guys are still watching these videos. Oh my goodness, it's crazy. I'm really enjoying myself making these types of content, and it's less stressful for me, gives me more time with my family, and you guys still get to support that, and I just want to say thank you so much. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.